Hi, everybody, and welcome to Love Fraud Live. I fell for a romance scam. My sociopathic ex-husband met me online and seduced me so he could take my money. He got $227,000 from me. But what I experienced was nothing compared to the industrial-scale romance scams that are plaguing the internet today. I'm Donna Anderson, author of LoveFraud.com and host of the True Love Fraud Stories podcast. After betrayal by a sociopath, I help you understand what happened, put down the emotional burden, and move forward. Tonight, I will explain the new criminal romance scam called pig butchering. At the end of my short presentation, I'll answer your questions. So please go ahead and subscribe to Love Fraud Live. When you do, you'll be notified about all my new YouTube videos. Okay, let's get started. Pig butchering has nothing to do with farm animals. Pig butchering is a sophisticated romance scam in which con artists meet people online, seduce them with promises of love and companionship, and then the con artists convince their targets to sink their hard-earned money into fake cryptocurrency investments, which soon disappear. What's truly frightening is that these aren't random sociopaths like my ex-husband conning whomever they come across. Pig butchering is a massive criminal enterprise in which thousands of workers are on the job, actively fleecing targets all day, every day. These criminals steal about $64 billion, I said billion dollars a year worldwide, according to the U.S. Institute of Peace. Americans lost about $5 billion last year in 2024, which was a 42% increase over the $3.5 billion lost in 2023. The scam is called pig butchering because the swindlers fatten up their targets by seducing them over and building confidence with them over weeks or months, and then they butcher them by taking their money and disappearing. You need to know about this scam. If you are online at all, which I assume you are, or if you use a smartphone, which you probably do, you are a target. Here at Love Fraud, we've told countless stories about sociopaths who proclaimed their love and then scammed their targets for money. My ex-husband did it to me and multiple other women, taking more than $1 million in total. But with pig butchering, crime lords from China operate industrial-scale scamming centers that are located primarily in Southeast Asia. Yes, I said scamming centers. They're like call centers, except the workers are calling to steal your money. This is serious. For years, Chinese criminals made money through illicit casinos and online gambling. But when the coronavirus struck, that revenue dried up because the casinos no longer had customers nor workers. So, the crime lords converted old casinos and other properties into online scamming operations. The Wall Street Journal reported that hundreds of thousands of people work in these scamming centers. Many of them have actually been trafficked and are kept there by force. So, how does that happen? Well, the crime lords post online ads promising work in technology or call centers. People apply for the jobs. Many of the people, the applicants, are from India. They are then transported to the scamming centers in Burma, Laos, Cambodia, and the Philippines. And then their passports are confiscated, they are forced to work long hours and live in dormitories, and they can't leave. And the workers have quotas of victims to meet, and if they fail, they may be beaten. These are modern-day slaves. So, who are the sociopaths here? The scam center workers who are trying to find and seduce unsuspecting targets may be victims themselves, just trying to stay alive. The real sociopaths are the crime lords running the scams. So, how do you know if you've been targeted for a pig butchering scam? Here are 5 warning signs from the FBI. Number 1, meeting someone online or through an unsolicited text message and having that person pitch an investment opportunity. Number 2, the person requests to move the conversation to an encrypted messaging app. Number 3, the person claims high returns and pressures you to invest quickly. 4, the person requests that you limit contact with financial advisors and family. And 5, if you do send money, you have difficulty trying to withdraw your funds or are required to pay previously undisclosed fees and taxes in order to get your money. This is a brazen scam. But what makes people vulnerable to it? Is it a lack of intelligence, low self-esteem, financial illiteracy? Well, the AARP, which is the American Association of Retired Persons, has been researching this for years. They hoped to find a common character flaw in scam victims and then teach people to be aware of the flaw and put an end to fraud for good. Well, that didn't work. After 20 years of research, AARP learned that there is no universal character flaw that makes people susceptible to fraud. When it comes to falling for a scam, it doesn't matter who you are. It matters how you are and what's going on in your life when you get targeted. So here are 4 factors that AARP research found best predicted losing money to scams. Number 1, stressful life events. Fraud victims experienced twice as many stressful life events, such as death of a family member, loss of a job, or feeling lonely, than non-victims did during the time they encountered the fraud. Number 2, less social and family support. Fraud victims reported significantly less family support and closeness than non-victims. 3, stronger emotions. Victims reported far stronger emotional responses during fraud encounters than non-victims. These emotions could be either positive or negative and led to the victims feeling out of control. And 4, targeted by scammers. On average, fraud victims reported 60% more fraud encounters than non-victims, so people who had already been victimized are often victimized again. If you suspect that you've been targeted in a scam, here's what the FBI says you should do. First, immediately stop sending money and file a report as soon as possible with the FBI's Internet Crime Complaint Center, or IC3. Rapid reporting can help support the recovery of lost funds. Second, do not release any financial or personal identifying information or pay any additional fees or taxes to withdraw money that you've invested in a potential scheme. And 3, do not pay for services that claim to be able to recover lost funds because these are often scams as well. We all know that it's best not to get involved with a scam to begin with. So how can you stay safe? Well, understand that stress and emotional arousal make you vulnerable. If you're feeling emotional or out of control, be aware that this is not the time to be making important decisions. So that's the presentation for tonight. If you've been scammed, or if you're dealing with a psychopath, antisocial, or narcissist, reach out to me. I can help you understand what happened, put down the emotional burden, and move forward. For more information, please visit lovefraud.com/talk to Donna. Now I'll answer your questions, so please go ahead and type your comments and questions into the chat. Feel free to ask me anything related to this presentation about pig butchering or other topics as well. So, okay. It looks like we have a comment here. Sacred Quani in 8800. That's an interesting name. Love and respect to you. Same to you. Thank you so much. So please go ahead, and if you have any questions, as I said, type it in the chat. When I was doing the research for this story, I mean, there are multiple articles in the Wall Street Journal. There have been some criminal cases, and the scope of this issue, this pig butchering set of scams, is just amazing. It is mind-boggling. And some of the stories are just make you shake your head. You know, for example, in the Philippines, there is a mayor of a small town who actually turned her city into a hub for pig butchering scammers. And so this woman, she was 34 years old. Her name was Alice Guo. She was ethnic Chinese, but had been in the Philippines most of her life. She bought 25 acres, and then I'm not sure of the sequence of events, but eventually became mayor. But then she accelerated the development of a campus, a scamming compound right next to essentially her city hall office. And so they built an office building, you know, with all the computers and, you know, where everybody was working. They built dormitories for 3,000 people, and they actually built luxury housing for the scam lords, the crime lords. I mean, there were 12 townhouses that were highly decorated. They had, you know, like karaoke rooms and pool tables and swimming pools and even like secret hidden exits in case the cops came, because the cops did come eventually and raided the place. A lot of people, however, apparently they got tipped off. A lot of people escaped, including the mayor, although she was eventually tracked down and arrested. But it's just shocking, you know, the scale of this whole thing. And the other thing to keep in mind is that this whole operation is highly sophisticated. They're using special online tools. They're using artificial intelligence. And so, like, some of the things that they do is that the scammers get names, contact information, and possibly even like your bank records that hackers have gotten, that, you know, have gotten into maybe credit card companies or something like that. So that's what happens when you hear about these big hacks, when all this personal identifying information is released. Well, where does it go? It's available, and there are essentially data brokers who are selling this stuff to the scammers. So that's one of the things that happens. There are also artificial intelligence programs that can change the identity or change the appearance of the scammer and change the voice of the scammer so that it's modified, so you don't quite know, you know, who you're talking to. So they're doing that. They also use special encrypted messaging apps, both to exchange messages with the targets, and then also to launder the money afterwards, because that's another thing that goes on. There's this massive money laundering operation in the cryptocurrency. Luckily, sometimes it can be tracked because of the way they they shift the crypto around. But it has, I mean, in order for that to happen, your suspicions that you're involved in one of these things have to be, you have to report it right away. I mean, after a certain amount of time, which isn't very long, the trail goes dead and stuff can't be recovered. Also, I mentioned that there were some court cases or criminal actions, and just last month in October, the Justice Department seized $15 billion, $15 billion with a B, $billion in crypto from one of these crime lords. They didn't catch the guy. Apparently, he's still on the loose, but they did manage to get $15 billion of the money that his operation took. Maybe some of that will get back to the victims. I certainly hope so. So the other thing to understand, I talked a little bit about how scam artists, what they do. They know exactly what they're doing. In fact, here's a little bit more of the research that came from AARP, is that in order to try and figure out how people become susceptible to scams, and like I said, they researched this for like 20 years, what they finally did is they went and interviewed con men who had been captured or sentenced to prison. They were in jail or wherever they found these guys. And some of them were happy to talk, and they were happy to describe what they do. So there is a phrase that the con men use that's called putting them under the ether, like vapors and everything. And what that means is that they want to get their target into a place where they're highly emotional. And then, when you're highly emotional, your emotional brain is working and your thinking brain is not working. Your frontal cortex just goes offline. And so they do that in two different ways. They do it either through positive emotions by sweeping you off your feet in a whirlwind romance. We've all been there. I know about that one. Or they do it with negative emotions by keeping you afraid, or they use fear. Perhaps you've heard of those scams where people get a fake book message and, your son has been in a car accident or your grandchild has been in a car accident. We can't locate the parents, send money right away. Well, people fall for that stuff. They get upset and they're worried. So but they're doing it intentionally, and it's called putting them under the ether. So, as I said, it can be either negative emotions or positive emotions, but when you're emotional, you're not making good decisions. So that's exactly what the con artists want to do, is to make it so that you are highly emotional and therefore more susceptible to their scams. Okay. All right, so let's see. Glob says, so how best to deal with the finances? Any advice? My difficult husband now says his money is his and my money's mine. He did not say this in the beginning. Okay, well, I'm not sure if that, I guess it can qualify as a scam, not quite like the pig butchering scams. But that sounds like a typical disordered person in a divorce situation. The finances may just be a symptom of the issues. So I guess the real situation for you is to figure out what's going on in the relationship. I mean, is this person, are you starting to think that he is disordered? And if so, the best thing that you can do, well, we have talked about this before. It kind of depends on your situation. If you don't have kids, the best thing you can do is just get out of it. If you come to the conclusion, looking at all the videos and, the information that we have online, and you come to the conclusion that you're dealing with a sociopath, understand that it will never get better. It will never be good, and there's a very good chance that your relationship will get bad. So if you don't have kids, I recommend just getting out of it as soon as you can. I mean, even if you have to take a hit financially, cutting ties, getting out, and moving on is the best thing. If you do have kids, things get complicated, depending on how old they are and, your situation, who's been taking care of them, who's been earning the money. It gets a lot more complicated. So you really have to think hard about that. And we have more information about that. I think I've talked about that before. But, then it just becomes tricky as far as, what the best move is. So, but, if somebody is telling you that his money his and your money's yours, beware of if he's not, trying to latch onto your money as well. Okay, so Ted NJ says, she says that one of the liberating and also scary things for me is that once you see narcissism and dark triad energy, demonic behaviors, you cannot unsee them. And absolutely. That's kind of one of the hard things about coming to terms with this. And I talked about this a little bit last week, is that, coming to terms with the idea that these people actually exist and how awful they are and how they have no interior, they have no soul, they have no character. I mean, it's really, really difficult to wrap your brain around that. But once you do, as you just said here, you can't unsee it, and you start to understand that, yes, these types of people are out there, and you get a little bit of wisdom so that to be on the lookout for it, because they can come in a really nice package, at least temporarily. But once they're out there, it's an opportunity to protect yourself. So yes, you're right. Okay. So Joey's agent says, how do you deal with a parent in denial about their disordered adult child? It's my brother. That's really difficult. I mean, it just really, really is difficult. And there's probably a lot of things going on here. A parent who loves their child just doesn't want to give up on them. I mean, if you're talking about your mom or your dad, whichever one, it's, you don't want to. I mean, it breaks your heart, a couple things, to realize that, that the child seems to be bad and, always is bad and will continue. I mean, it kind of depends. You mentioned denial. Because one of the things that's difficult is that if they're in denial, it could be because the sociopath, your brother, is still doing a really good job of manipulating the parent, because, they're subjected, to being conned, just like the rest of us are. So that's certainly a possibility. If your mother or father is still in touch with the brother, then they're going to be being manipulated. And so, I mean, that's kind of like anybody else in the situation who is being manipulated, whether it's a romantic relationship or whatever it is. If you're still in touch with this person, you're being manipulated. So that's, one part of it. And then the other part of it is, they may suspect but not want to believe that the son is permanently broken, and that's just too hard. It's too hard to deal with that. So how do you deal with it? Well, I guess the main thing is to kind of protect yourself. If your brother is draining your parents' assets, you know, depending on how old your parents are, you know, maybe you can find a way to become a check on the assets. You know, I don't know if they're old enough that they might need guardianship or something like that. And also depending on the age, the possibility of looking into situations regarding elder abuse. I mean, that might be a possibility. So I guess the first thing that I would suggest is to protect yourself, and then perhaps look for opportunities in order to try and educate your parent about what might be going on. I mean, it's hard to generalize about this, but the only thing you really can do is protect yourself. And then, you know, you just have to see, you know, how, when, I mean, the other thing is to watch for opportunities. If you ever see an opportunity, if something comes up when you have a chance to talk to your parent, maybe you can do that, because sometimes they may be more receptive than other times. And if there's any way to kind of keep them apart, I mean, keep the brother away from your parent, that would help. You know, because when you're dealing with them and you're continually being manipulated, it's hard to get out of that. Okay. Okay, so Contessa says, what does pig butchering mean? Pig butchering, if you, I talked about it, it is actually a romance scam that is far bigger than a romance scam. It's like an enterprise. I mean, there are people, crime lords in China, who are actually running these companies or scamming operations where thousands of people are working, and they're calling, either meeting people on Facebook, meeting people on other apps, meeting people on dating apps, and sometimes just sending random text messages. And then they strike up a relationship with these people, and eventually, you know, convince them that they're friends, then convince them that they have some inside information about crypto and a great investment opportunity. And because the target already has feelings for the person or trusts them, you know, the target falls for it, and then the whole thing turns out to be a scam. So essentially what pig butchering is a romance scam on steroids. You know, it's a romance scam, but as an enterprise. You know, they're running it like a business. So so that's the short answer, but you can listen to the beginning of the presentation where I talk about it. It's just really scary. So, okay. Well, thank you very much for your questions. I really appreciate it. And be sure to check out my podcast, which is called True Love Fraud Stories. And with these stories, survivors tell their own outrageous stories of betrayal. And I also interview experts who have, they address issues that are in the stories, and you can listen to True Love Fraud Stories on YouTube, YouTube Music, or wherever you listen to podcasts. And again, please subscribe to Love Fraud Live. When you do, you'll automatically be notified about all the new videos. And by subscribing, you also boost the distribution of Love Fraud Live, so you can help to spread the words about dangerous sociopaths like those running these pig butchering scams, who are throughout the world. So thank you very much. I appreciate you all being here tonight, and I look forward to seeing you next Wednesday.